Voy a encontrar. Soy así, ya es muy tarde para cambiar. Yo no espero nada, vivo sin rumbo.
Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to welcome Ed Doherty. Has completed his new book, Observations at the Speed of Life. It's a collection of stories that have been shared with others throughout a career of mentoring and motivating friends, family, and coworkers. Sometimes humorous, sometimes inspirational, and occasionally packed with wisdom. They're all about aspiring to be the best version of yourself. Some of the essays are very personal and some are philosophical, but regardless, each one packs a message about hope and value and the value of persistence. And I love this. And welcome to A Little Less Fear podcast.
It's great to be here. I think I've lived my whole life with a little less fear.
Oh, well, let's talk about that.
Well, I think that when you're young, before imposter syndrome was invented,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I had it. I'm sure I was a little unsure about if I was good enough for this or good enough for that. And I think if you face up to the challenges that confront you, a lot of times they disappear.
Right. I love how you said that. So if you confront the challenges that are in front of you, they will disappear.
And they can disappear because we tend to exaggerate the degree of difficulty and underestimate our ability to handle challenges.
Why is that?
I don't
Why do
know.
people do that?
One of my cliches is it's amazing what you can do if you have no choice. If you
Right.
have to do it, it's amazing.
I love how you said that. It's amazing what you can do. I'm writing this down because I write down quotes and
Yeah,
and I'm
okay.
gonna post all of these quotes for people that are listening. It's amazing what you can do when you have no choice. Um, this this rings so true for me. So for if people are listening to this episode for the first time, you can go back to some of my episodes where I talk about this genetic disease I have and how I lost my urinary bladder. And a lot of people have often commented to me like, "I don't think I could do that." And I've said that before, but if you have no choice, you
You do it.
probably could.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably could. And so it is amazing what you can do when you have no choice. How has that been true for you?
Well, I think my book has stories about starting when I was 10 years old and things that I learned about it. Um, One of the stories that kind of popped into my mind was I saved up my money and went to a hockey camp when I was in junior high school. And the first day, it cost a lot of money, and I was already working I had a paper route when I was 10, and I was working in the corner store when I was 12, so 15 bucks a week, I was rich compared to my classmates. And so I went to this hockey school, 5 nights. There were a lot of college kids there. Pro players were there. First time I stepped on the ice, someone hit me, knocked me right on my butt. And everybody stayed away from the little guy with glasses because I wore glasses for
Oh gosh.
the rest of the week. And by Friday, I said, "Boy, I really wasted my money. I didn't really get anything out of that." And Friday night there was going to be a scrimmage, and then one of the television stations showed up, and we put our special jerseys on. And I said, "Well, I don't want this to be a complete waste. I am just going to go out there and fly like the wind." And so I went out there and I was skating here. No one could catch me. I was skating there. And when it was all over, I got a trophy as the most improved skater.
Oh, how wonderful is that?
And I didn't think I skated that much better, but I didn't really evaluate it because the year after that, I made the high school team. And the year after that, I made an all-star team. And so I actually got better without knowing it. And I've kind of relied on that. A lot of times we're the last person to evaluate our progress. We need an
That's true.
external source to validate it.
Right. I love this as you're telling me your story about how, I mean, you were a kid and you could have, it could have gone the opposite way, the sour way, or feeling bullied or just not good enough and just
Yeah.
not being persistent. And even though you weren't aware that you were improving, you kept at it. You were still I mean, you were persevering. What was driving you, if you can remember, to continue despite not knowing your progress?
Well, I didn't want to give up. I had worked hard. I had saved a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I I did it to get better, and I just wanted to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that if I went out there like a timid soul, that nothing good would happen. So I just kind of seized the moment. I still have the trophy, by the way. I look at it every now and then, and 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 I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did. Another related story to that: how we handle disappointment impacts our lives more than we ever know. The story I'll tell you is also a sports story. I tried out for the junior high school baseball team. I was a catcher, but I couldn't even reach second base throwing the ball. And the last day before spring vacation, I went to the locker room, just like in the movie. They posted the names of all the kids who made the team. I read it. I wasn't there. I walked home and cried the whole way home because I didn't make the team.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time I got home, I said, well, sometimes teams send players down for seasoning. They just need more. So I'll try out again next year.
Oh,
True
wow.
story.
That's amazing.
So the first class after vacation was my art class with Mr. Colley. And guess who was the coach who cut me? Mr. Colley. So I walked into the class, and I don't know, to this day, I don't know what possessed me to say it, but I said to him, hey, Mr. Colley, how is the team shaping up? Well, that guy was in shock because was not the expected 13-year-old behavior.
Yeah, right. It sounds like a little man.
So the class is over, and he says, Ed, could you stop by the desk on your way out? And I said, sure. He says, Ed, one of our catchers can't continue. I wonder if you would reconsider joining the team.
Wow.
I said, yes. And so I went to every practice. And that year I think we played 15 games. And I got in one game for 2 outs in left field.
That's amazing.
However, the next year, same team, guess who was the captain?
You were the captain the very
Yep.
next year?
Yep.
That's amazing.
So I've often looked at that. The way I handled that disappointment
Mm-hmm.
really could have changed the trajectory of my life,
Right.
because it just did.
Mm-hmm. So now looking back at the after all these years, how would you say you handled that disappointment?
Well, when I was in high school, we had a group of guys that used to say FSFY, and that stood for feeling sorry for yourself.
Hmm.
And that was taboo. And I
Mhm.
think that while I've done it from time to time, I've been in a car accident or two or missed a plane, and you feel sorry for yourself when that happens. But in general, I try to resist that
Mhm.
because I don't think anything good happens when you feel sorry for yourself.
No,
I think you put this force field around you that prevents good things from happening.
absolutely.
And when you feel sorry for yourself, guess what? Something else bad is going to happen
Oh
because
yeah,
you're not ready.
exactly. And when you're feeling sorry for yourself, I mean that's just what you're gonna keep attracting is things to feel sorry about.
Yeah.
And it's easy to spiral after that. And then you even start hanging out with people that feel sorry for themselves because misery loves company. So yeah, I mean,
Right.
I could definitely see how the FSFW, feeling sorry for yourself, is a something that's important to resist. So
Yeah.
how did you resist it? Was it just something that you feel, because the way you're describing yourself as a child, I almost feel like you were naturally inclined to just jump back up on your feet and be able to resist negativity or heaviness and being able to transform that and change that.
Well, two things. I was the oldest of eight,
Holy moly, wow.
and there's a certain amount of something that goes with that.
Yeah. Oh
And
God.
a lot of times we don't give our parents enough credit for how we turned out. We
Hmm.
we just remember maybe when they let us down or something else. But I think when I was growing up, I became aware that I was a reflection of my parents and that people were judging my parents based on me. And I had that thought at a very early age.
And having that thought at an early age, like seeing that now, you feel that that was a reflection on how you were as a young adult, young child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they were the type that would resist feeling sorry for yourself.
Yes, I think so.
So they never told you, they never said anything to you,
Oh,
like
no,
right now you're
no,
being FSFW or anything like
no,
that.
no,
You kind of
no,
just
no.
naturally picked it up and said, okay. And as the
Yeah.
eldest, I can imagine that you also felt somewhat responsible to demonstrate that type of ability or
Oh,
resilience.
there was definitely a role model element to growing up. But if we go back to what we were originally talking about, I think the um, being insecure or having imposter syndrome, I just never wanted to give. I just wanted to get better. I didn't, even if I was failing, I didn't want to believe I was failing. I wanted to say, hey, if I do something else or if I try something else that, maybe I can make it. Um, and so just because we're talking sports stories, my original plan was to try to go to college and play ice hockey.
Hmm.
I flunked the physical because I'm blind in one of my eyes, and so I ended up playing soccer at the college level. The
Hmm.
doctors would let me do that because I couldn't hurt as many people as what they
Oh
told
God.
me. And so I can trace my athletic career from Mr. Colley giving me a second chance all the way to being a co-captain of a Division I soccer team.
That's amazing.
Just keep going. Same thing, same mentality.
Just keep going. Just keep going. You mentioned something earlier before you mentioned the soccer experience, where I guess if you were to fail on something, you would just go to the next thing. If you did fail with something, what feelings did you have when you did fail? Did you ever have the feeling sorry for yourself at that moment, or was it literally an opportunity for you to change your direction?
I think everybody does.
Sure.
I think when you don't succeed, you feel sorry for yourself. And there's a quote. I don't know who said it, but it 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 doesn't matter how how many times you get knocked down. What matters is how quick you get up.
Hmm.
So if you're knocked down and you stay down, then good things are happening. But if you get knocked down and you get back up, you're right back in the race.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely back in the race, one way or another, if you
Yeah,
get back
right.
up. But sometimes I have found that, at least in my life, that staying down can be beneficial because getting up too quick might be a little rash.
Well, I will tell you that there is a thin line between bravery and stupidity. And I spend a lot of time right on that line.
I love that. So there, yeah. Well, let's talk about that. The fine line between bravery and stupidity.
Well, you mentioned that I ran a marathon when I was 70. Talk
That's
about it.
amazing.
Talk about it. I was either brave or stupid. People either said I was brave or stupid right from the beginning
Hmm.
when I announced it. But
Hmm.
but let me back up. I didn't start running till I was 60. And so
Goodness.
I tell people I have 30-year-old knees. Because
Wow.
most people my age have knee problems, but I don't.
Hmm.
So my wife suggested that I get off the couch on a regular basis. So I started walking. So every day for a year, I walked. I kept track. every single day. And then one day I said, I'm going to run 100 yards. And I ran 100 yards and I didn't collapse. And I said, and I wasn't in pain. I said, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of weeks later, I decided to run a mile. So, boy, that was the same thing happened. I was in shock that I wasn't, aching and paining. And so eventually I started jogging, and then I ran a 5K, and then I ran another one and I hurt myself. So I went to physical therapy. The physical therapist turned into my run trainer, and I did a 10K and then another 10K. And then a guy I worked with said, hey, try a half marathon. He says, the course is flat. And it scared me. I just didn't think I could do it. 13.1 miles. But I did. And then I ran another one, and then another one, and then another one. And then I went to my trainer and I said, do you think I could run a marathon? And she goes, it's about time you figured that out.
Wow.
So I started training. I trained for a couple of years. I got a nutritionist. I had a trainer who spec'd all of my runs. I used heart rate running. I ran until my heart rate got over 150, and then I walked until it dropped, and then I ran. So I was very careful. And then the Boston Marathon, you can either qualify or you can run for a nonprofit. And nonprofits have numbers. That's how they raise money. So I ran for the Boston Bruins Foundation. The requirement was raising $10,000. I ended up at 13. Wow. And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
The Boston Marathon only allowed, usually 30,000 people run. They only allowed 3,000 or 4,000 to run the course. However, you could run virtually. You could create your own course. And my wife wasn't crazy about the marathon, I got to be honest with you. And so I said to her, if I could run where I could stop every now and then and rest, and okay. So I got permission. So I created my own course around the outside of Fenway Park in Boston, where the Red Sox play. 47 laps around the outside of the park was 26.2 miles.
My gosh.
And there's bars and nightclubs behind the left field wall. So I talked to one of the managers and he gave me his patio, and I had a doctor come to, just to satisfy my wife. I had extra shoes, and I ran 47 laps in 6 hours and 12 minutes and 18 seconds when I was 70 years old.
That's incredible, Ed. So it took you 10 years to be able to do that because you started at 60.
Yep. But I'll tell you the biggest surprise of it all. And there were two surprises. I've always thought of myself as a very dedicated son of a,
I can see that.
But the dedication required to do that was stunning even to me. If I'm good, remember, I'm running 26.2 miles in October. That means in September, I am doing 2 20-mile training runs. Okay. Think about, so I ran 500 training miles that year.
That's crazy.
I went through a couple of pairs of shoes, and the best part, by far, nothing was close, is when I had done it, the number of people who told me that I inspired them. I didn't set out to inspire anybody. I just set out to, do this. And the number of people who told me how proud they were of me probably rivaled when I was in kindergarten. I don't know. I couldn't remember the last time that many people had said they were proud of me. So it was worth the experience. It was definitely worth it.
It's an incredible experience. It's unbelievable. Honestly, it's just, I can't even imagine that discipline. I mean, geez. And so where are you at now? I mean, once you completed the Boston Marathon, were you done running after that?
Yes and no. my favorite race is something called the Falmouth Road Race. It takes place on Cape Cod. It's a 7-mile race in August on the most humid day of the year.
Yeesh.
Generally, the temperature is in the 80s or 90s.
Oh, God.
There's only about 14,000 people who run it. And in order to run it, you have to raise money for a nonprofit. And this will be my 11th year running and raising money for a nonprofit.
That is amazing. It's just wow. I mean, you're inspiring me. I mean, prior to recording, just so listeners are aware, prior to recording, I was talking to Ed about this and how I mean he's just reading about it inspired me. I mean, I'd be lucky if I can continue half a mile on my own, but I mean, really, I mean, this is really incredible. If you put your mind to it, your body will follow. Do you feel that to be true?
That's a great point. Now, I could not have run a marathon with just my body. I'm too old. I had to use, I made that from the neck up. As an example, I had about 40 donors. And what I did is I wrote their names on athletic tape and taped them to both my forearms. And every lap around Fenway Park, I dedicated to someone who donated money to me, to the cause, and thought about our relationship stuff. And that kept me going. A funny note here is that the local NBC station found out about it and showed up at 5 a.m. when I started to film me running the marathon. And it dominated their early morning news coverage. So I had people who were in town to watch the marathon come and ask to run with me. They made donations so they could run a lap with me. And the tour guides at Fenway Park, there's a tour every hour. I was part of the tour, so they have this group of people waiting to go inside. And this is this 70-year-old guy who's running, da-da-da-da-da. I used to joke, if they don't pay attention, I'm going to run inside and run around the warning track. So yeah, it was definite. I knew it was the achievement of a lifetime.
Absolutely.
But I'll tell you what I also knew. I also knew that I had to take that last step. Going 26 miles without going the last 0.2. Nothing. I can't say that anything. All I can say is I ran 26 miles, but I can say I ran a marathon now because I did it. And one of the things I did at the very end was my son uses a wheelchair. And he was there with me from the start, cheering me on as I went each lap. And when I got to 26 miles, I got him. I stopped. I got him. I pushed him up the street, turned around so that we were going to cross the finish line together.
Oh, how beautiful.
I had about 15, 20 friends there, and they went inside the restaurant and commanded a roll of toilet paper, which they stretched across the street. So me and my son broke through the finish line with the cameras flashing. So it was a pretty cool experience.
Wow, what a beautiful experience. I mean, and to have your son support you there, and also I'm certain he probably felt triumphant as well with you.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable that you were able to complete that at 70. I had a question prior to that. You said that your wife encouraged you in the beginning to get up and start walking. Yeah, I have found that there are people in life that will ignite the next chapter in your life. And we have many hundreds of opportunities when people come in to inspire us, and you can either choose to listen or not.
Yeah,
But it
right.
seems that she was a catalyst in this, with this incredible lifetime achievement.
No question.
To encourage you. I mean, it's just unbelievable that you followed her advice and you trusted her.
I never tell the story without that part. I don't say, yeah, I ran a marathon, da, 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 da. I always start with my wife suggesting that I get off the couch.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And the amazing thing is the trust and the faith that you had with that suggestion.
Yeah. Well, we have our 51st anniversary this summer, so
Well,
we're
congratulations.
we're kind of connected, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
I'll say you are. I mean, that's super duper connected. That's incredible. And so, something else that just blew my mind right now. You said that that was your basically like a lifetime achievement, and it's not. What I find beautiful about that is you didn't say, "Oh, I made $50 million and that was the my lifetime achievement." It was something that you put your mind, body, and your entire faith within yourself, your being, to accomplish something that not that many people can do at that decade of their life. And I mean, that is what's the your lifetime achievement, and that is just it's just incredible. It wasn't a material thing; it was a thing that you put your mind to and believed in.
Right. And it's, a couple of years ago, to be honest with you, sometimes I still can't believe I did it, but I did it. I got the proof. I got
Hmm.
the,
Yeah.
uh, and you're right. I had to put my mind to it. There were
Yeah.
times when I said, do I really want to keep on this
Mhm.
path? Should I fake an injury or something so I can get out of it? But I just kept going.
Mhm. Well, thank you for that. I mean, your story has inspired and motivated others, including me. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for your persistence and your perseverance. It's really quite beautiful that you're taking your human experience to the full most extent that you can in your lifetime, and that's really powerful.
I want to be all I can be.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, definitely. And so, I mean, you wrote a book at 72, and then you finally decided to write a book at 72. What encouraged you? What motivated you? Why write a book?
So um, when email was invented, I always led a team. I led a team for many, many years. When email was invented, I started doing what I called a Friday update. I sent one email to the entire team, and I always had a quote of the week. And then I had reminders, this is happening Thursday. I did shout outs, congratulations to John for blank. And then I ended it with an observation. And it could have been an observation about some event that we had or some experience that I had. Um, Sometimes I told some of the stories that we've talked about just to share with people what how I was thinking.
Uh-huh.
And so in 2020, I was furloughed and I became a consultant, and I didn't have anybody to write to. I didn't have a team. I was suffering withdrawal because I wasn't mentoring anybody. I wasn't leading anybody. So I took my contact list and I created something I called the Wednesday weblog. And instead of doing remind, it was the Friday update like I'd always written, but it was just the observation. And I made an observation, and that first one I sent to hundreds of contacts. And I've done it every Wednesday since then.
Wow.
And after a couple of years, someone, could have been my wife, but someone suggested that I put them into a book. So I put 60 of them into a book. I have another 60 ready to go, probably next year. And they're stories that resonate with people. I'll give you an example. The first story in the book: I had a summer job as a pipe fitter, third class unskilled. That was my title, third class unskilled. Talk about self-esteem, right? You call somebody third class and unskilled.
Oh man.
I was a pipe fitter in a shipyard at the very end of the Vietnam War, and everybody was trying to stretch the work so that they would get overtime. And they were hiding. Like if you went into the restroom, the union contract said you didn't have to come out. And so I was taught to collect all of the local papers, and I went into the restroom and did all the crossword puzzles. I'd stay in there for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other things that bothered me. There was a restaurant across the street called Pete's, and at 11:30, everybody lined up at the time card shack. You punched out, they ran across the street, and you walked into Pete's, and there was a ham sandwich and a quart of beer. You sat down and you paid to get out.
Oh gosh.
And so the country's in a war. This boat is needed by the Navy, and these people are. And I came up with the conclusion that what you do when no one's looking is really important.
Mm-hmm.
So that was.
I love that. What you do when no one's looking is really important.
So the book is filled with stories like that of my life,
Mm-hmm.
that most of them have a message. I have to admit, there's a story about returning shopping carts after you've been to a supermarket. I'm
Mhm.
not sure what the message is there,
Sure.
but there's only two kinds of people: those that return them and those that are just too busy. They were too important, and so I have some humor there in the
Mhm.
book. I do some a little Boston slanguage, if you will, but most of them are experiences that I've gone through, what I observed, the lesson I took from it, and recommendations.
Absolutely love that. And so even in the small observation of how some people return shopping carts and some people don't. I mean, what type of lesson can somebody learn from that?
Well, I want you to stop and think about. I want you to stop and think about returning a shopping cart. Now, someone who uses that cart and puts it right back where it belongs
Mm-hmm.
is a certain kind of person, right?
Sure.
Now, if it's raining and they leave it where it was, they're a different kind of person, aren't they? Because they only do the right thing. You know what I mean? It's easy.
Right. I see.
So one of the things I don't think most people like, I don't like people telling me they're more important than me.
Sure.
And someone who doesn't return a shopping cart is telling me they're more important than me.
I see. So somebody that's not returning the shopping cart is saying that their time is more important.
Right.
Right. That and also I feel another lesson in that is how much more present someone can be with their life, because if people are living more in the present moment, they'll see that the small little thing that somebody would call like a nuance is actually something that can be gracefully done
Yep.
and for the benefit of others, and also know and having this hidden, it's back to what you said, what do you do when nobody's looking, is really
Yeah.
important because it shows somebody's integrity.
Right. Imagine if there was a fine for not returning shopping carts. Right?
Right.
Everybody would do it. I know you're in California. I used to drive in the Central Valley in California, and the Thule fog would cover, sit on the valley. And I remember zipping up Interstate 5 and seeing a sign that said patrolled by aircraft. And I would say, you're not going to see me going 70 right now. You know what I mean? It's so when no one's watching, it's a whole nother thing.
That's true. That's really incredible. I mean, that really says a lot about somebody's integrity. I guess that's just the word that keeps coming to my
Yeah,
head.
right. I guess you're right.
Yeah, really
So one of
incredible.
my favorite stories in the book, I call a little red towel.
A little red towel.
Little red towel.
Mm.
So I worked across the street from Fenway Park. I was a big baseball fan, and because I worked local, I was able to get to most of the games. And I met this 80-year-old usher who was the most enthusiastic person I'd ever met. He was bouncing around. He called everybody by name. And if you didn't know your name, he made one up. And he was between section 17 and 18. And I introduced myself and I said, you have redefined enthusiasm. We eventually became friends. And there were 2 seats right on the aisle that season ticket holders never came to. So for about 100 games, I would get in there. I'd go up, I'd sit in seat 2. At the 3rd inning, when he was off duty, he'd sit in seat 1, have a Coke and some popcorn. And I'm in my 20s, he's in his 80s. And I don't know how much wisdom I got from him, but I think I got a lot. And we sat there and he talked about this, that, and the other thing. And then we moved to California. And the Christmas before we left, somehow I realized he hadn't been anyplace for Christmas in years. His wife was long gone. His daughter lived out of state. And so we invited him to our house for Christmas. Mm-hmm. And we got him what you would get an 80-year-old usher. We got him aftershave you could smell in the bleachers, right? But we also got him a little red towel so that, ushers wipe off seats for a tip and, da-da-da-da-da. So I had noticed he had a towel that was faded, so I got him a little red towel. So we moved to California, and every year I came back, I'd look him up. And one year I came back, and he wasn't in his normal section. So I talked to the guy who was there. He said, oh, they gave him a sitting job over under right field. So I went over, I found him, I thanked him, we made eye contact, and we made that eye contact. We knew we were never going to see each other again because he was on his last legs. And so I thanked him for the wisdom and the time we spent together. And he thanked me for the little red towel 10 years later.
Wow.
So he's ushering someplace in the sky.
I believe it.
And I know he has that little red towel with him.
I'm sure he does. And I'm sure you'll see it again one day.
Yeah.
Well,
so those are the kinds of stories, from my life that I put into the book, just to share.
I love it. I love that you've put these stories together just to share, because it really does. I mean, it helps a person, it helps humanity to really come down to really feel what it means to be human and to have these human experiences, and how small little things, small little acts of kindness really does make the world go round. And a small little act of kindness like that, somebody can take for the rest of their life and keep it in their heart. Yeah. So it's really important to be sprinkling your joy and your love wherever you go in any situation. And you're very observing too. So you're definitely an observer, which doesn't surprise me.
That's why I call it observations.
Yeah, you're definitely an observer, and you definitely have a big heart, and you're open to share and you're open to receive, which is really beautiful and graceful.
Thank you.
Well, what got you to be like that? Not too many men are like that.
Well, I have to blame my parents and my wife. And I think that when I was in my 30s, we had a son who was born with multiple birth defects. Spina bifida, hydrocephalus, scoliosis, bilateral club feet, 40 operations by the time he was 12. And I realized why I was on Earth. We suspect why we're here. We rationalize why we're here, but I knew why I was here. And, we were talking earlier about it's amazing what you can do when you have no choice. Mm-hmm. I remember when the ambulance showed up to transfer him from a community hospital to a neonatal intensive care unit. And I knew that I had to be in charge because my wife was, recovering, and I was the one. And the ambulance driver says, sign this. And I said, I want to see your driver's license. And he looked at me like I was crazy. I said, you think I'm going to let anybody take my son without a valid California license?
All right.
And, the next day after he was born, he had spine surgery. And there was because he was born with an open spine, there was no guarantee that he was going to survive. And this is before cell phones and all that stuff. And I remember sitting in the hospital at the end of a corridor, and just like in the movies, the operating door opened, and I saw the physician walk towards me, and I didn't know what he was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You made it. I'll see you tomorrow." Because the second day, he had to have brain surgery.
Oh, geez.
And so I'm sitting there again. My wife is at home. I have nothing to distract me. I can't play anything on I'm just sitting there thinking through, will I see my son again? What's going on here? The operating room doors open. He comes down and he says, "It was successful." And I said to him, "Boy, he's a tough son of a bitch." And he looks at me and he says, "Just like his old man."
Oh my gosh, you're
So,
bringing me to tears here. Oh,
so
wow.
it's amazing what you can do when you have no choice. Like
Yeah.
you just have to do it, and let's get it done. Let's go.
Yeah. Whew. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, beautiful story, really. I see that the persistence that you had as a little boy. Gosh, your story's so touching. The persistence that you had as a little boy helped you to build yourself as a foundation of this strong father that was about to go into an incredible journey with his son, and you didn't give up either. It's like you were given this your son, and there weren't any options. This is what needs to happen, and you were going with it. Just the way that you continued your life as you were a kid. When you fell down, you're like, well, you know what? You're gonna stay standing up on your 2 feet, especially now that your son is
Yeah,
being gifted to you. And it seems
yeah,
that your son did the same thing, even though he was a neonate. I mean, he still had that perseverance at days old. And so, I mean, it's really inspiring, motivating, and
yeah.
it's
My dad, um, before he passed away, he says to me, "I want you to know that most of my life I've been the toughest Doherty, but Joe is the toughest Doherty now."
oh yes,
To think of what he's overcome, and um, yeah, it's inspiring.
it really is. And I mean, it's no wonder his father can run a marathon at 70. Really. I mean, how beautiful is that? And so, geez, I'm trying to compose myself. Oh gosh, it's just so beautiful. I mean, life is really beautiful. It hands us things at unexpected moments, and we can embrace it or reject it. And I've found that just embracing any challenge or any moment and facing the challenges that you said, and just not expecting anything other than what will happen is one of the most beautiful ways that you can allow life to unfold for you.
Well, if you think about what impresses you, and the people that impress you, they're people that have overcome challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Like you impressed me as soon as we started talking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, stop and think about that. Someone who doesn't have challenges is born with a silver spoon in their mouth and everything goes their way. Okay, but somebody who bootstraps and scrambles and overcomes, I mean, those are the people we admire.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that maybe the inverse of that, or the reverse engineering, is you want to be admired, overcome stuff. That's the simplest way to do it. Overcome it and you'll be admired.
I have a question. Yeah, I mean, if somebody's wanting to be admired, if I
Yep.
mean, but either way, people are going to. I mean, because when I think of admiration, because I'm absolutely admiring your perseverance and your son. What when I think of that type of admiration, it's more of like an inspiration and motivation, and it's definitely a push to keep going and recognize the times that I am feeling stuck or where I'm not feeling well again, and to know that there's always going to be another opportunity to feel better again or to do it over again the next day. But I had a question. Oh, geez, I lost my train of thought. It was about, it'll come to me. It'll come to me.
See, I have an excuse because of my age. That happens to me all the time. I
Oh,
forget.
I know. What's my excuse, right? What's my excuse? Oh goodness. It was about, because see, confronting challenges. No, it was about, yes, here it is. So what, and this just came to me as we were talking about this, like I feel like I kind of know this difference in these two words, but I'm wondering what it means to you. Grit. Grit versus just going towards a challenge and facing the opportunity. Because I've heard that before, like you got to have grit in your life. It's like, well, how do you, what is grit to you?
I guess it would be the first thing that occurs to me is the ability to take a punch. Um, there's all kinds of walls are put up in front of us, and you either go over them, around them, or through them.
Mm-hmm.
If you only have grit, you go through it. you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, but it's unrealistic to think that smooth sailing for the rest of your life is going to happen. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that's not how the cards are dealt.
Sure.
Staying with cliches, that's one of the earliest cliches I ever had was play the cards you dealt. Every hand's a winner and every hand's a loser. Play the cards you dealt. And it's funny because when I supervise people, I didn't have a lot of turnover. And people would
Yeah.
say, how come you don't have turnover and everybody else does? And I'd say, I play the hand I'm dealt. You
Yeah.
know, try to make the best out of each
Yeah.
card, try to make the best out of each situation.
Right.
Um,
Just reminded
yeah,
me of Kenny Rogers' song, right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
got
yeah,
to
yeah.
know when to
To
hold 'em,
hold them,
know when
when
to
to fold them.
fold 'em, know
Yeah,
when to walk away, know when to run.
it's
You never
very true.
count your money. Oh my
When you're
God.
sitting at the
At the
table,
table, we'll be coming around the mountain
there'll
when
be
the
time enough.
dealing's
There'll be
done.
time enough for counting when the dealing's
Oh,
done.
there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done.
Yeah.
And that's for sure. Well, what a powerful song. I mean, it really is. And what a great way to bring it into this. I mean, thank you for your energy and thank you for this opportunity to connect with you and your son and your wife, and just your story has been really encouraging and motivating. And I mean, I'm going to take this story with me most likely for the rest of my life because it's given me an opportunity to be my best. And that's what you're here to do, to motivate people. I can feel it. And yeah, I
Well,
mean, if you,
just back up for a second. You got to
sure.
realize that you don't do a podcast with this title and this purpose without having a noble aspiration. This is a noble podcast
Mhm.
because this helps others. And if you stop and think about the definition of noble, it's helping others.
Yes.
So, congratulations for you on what you're doing. And I should be clapping for you. You shouldn't be clapping for me.
Well, we'll clap for each other because that's what
Okay.
we're here for, right? We're here to clap for each other. Thank you so much for telling me that. I really appreciate it. So I've got a poem, Ed, as expected, that I wrote dedicated to this episode and dedicated to your energy and your story. So here it goes. It's called Years Have Turned Pages. Ed Doherty. Years have turned pages into the chapters of my life, where I have faced a multitude of challenges. Challenges unforgotten, fallen between stars near and far, and submerged in waterfalls of tears, which have turned fears into cheers. For all the painful circumstances were amongst lessons and opportunities for a better me. And as I turn the pages of my life, unforeseen joy sprinkles laughter from yesterday to the day after. I sit in solitude in the distance, as an observer of grace, and life has been worth it. For instance, this is my happy place. And there it is.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Very cool. I wish I was a poet. Well, maybe I'm a poet and I don't know it.
You know what? You are. I mean, did that not rhyme? You never know. Your next book might be a book of poetry.
Yeah, no, that's safe. You're safe from me.
Oh my goodness. How can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners get a hold of your book and get a hold of you if they need to?
Sure. So the book is a webpage for the book, www.observationsatthespeedoflife.com. If that's too long to remember, you can go to Amazon. The book is available on Amazon, and it's available in English and Spanish. And I have an audiobook version coming out this summer. I narrated it myself. And
How
so
fun.
it's not Hollywood glitz, but it's real. You know what I mean? It's the real deal. And quite frankly, because I've listened to it, I think the audiobook is better than the written book.
That's great.
So
Well, thank goodness I have Audible, so I'm gonna have to get your book on
okay,
Audible.
I'll let you know when it comes out.
Yeah, let me know. I got it. Ed Doherty, everybody, on A Little Less Fear podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible energy. Looking forward to staying in touch with you and getting your audiobook of Observations at the Speed of Life. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you in the near future.
Enjoyed it.